Welcome to the Private Practice Journeys podcast, where mental health professionals learn about the nuts and bolts of private practice by listening to the journeys of 4 therapists that have taken the plunge into private practice. And here's your host, Chris Quarto.
Hey everyone, this is Chris Quarto. Welcome again to Private Practice Journeys. Hey, I just want to mention how honored I feel that these 4 therapists have agreed to be interviewed on a monthly basis throughout 2017 and really just kind of expose themselves and kind of allow you in on what it's like to start a private practice and to expand a practice and to give me the opportunity to interview them to find out all these things about what it's like. And so I just want to let them know that I feel very honored and privileged to be able to do this, and for you too, really, for the Journey followers, for you guys to, I feel honored that you would listen to this podcast, because I think that for me, obviously, I want you to get the most that you can out of these podcast episodes. So if you want to start your own private practice, you can, and to learn, but to tune in and to actually listen to these podcast episodes, it's really humbling to me that you would do that. So, but anyway, today's episode is with Debby Simmons, our therapist who just started a group private practice. And so, without further ado, here is Debby. Hello, Journey followers. Welcome again to Private Practice Journeys. I'm your host, Chris Quarto. And I am joined today by Debby Simmons, one of our 4 therapists who are joining us once a month to talk about their private practices. And Debby, welcome back.
Thanks, Chris.
Well, I think you had something very exciting occur recently. I just want to remind the Journey followers that your journey is a little bit different because you've been in private practice since 1993, solo private practice, and your new thing is starting a group practice. And I think you just had an open house the other day, didn't you?
We did, just on Friday night.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It was great. I was really nervous because I wasn't really sure, like who was going to show up.
Yeah.
And I had done, I'd advertised on Facebook. We had a lot of flyers going out in the community. I did a couple listserv groups. So
yeah,
I really had no idea.
Uh-huh.
And it was nice. We had a room full of people. We weren't overloaded with people, but the people that we connected with were very interested in the practice. We had one gentleman who was actually going to get an office now in the building because he really liked the community of people.
Oh, neat.
And I got another real nice email from another therapist over the weekend, and he was talking about how isolating he is in his practice, and so we may be talking about him coming on board at some point.
Oh,
so it was
very
really
cool.
successful. It was fun. Yeah.
What a nice way to connect, huh? With other people, other professionals.
Yeah.
And did you have any professionals, or I guess people who weren't in the field of mental health, or did you have any potential clients stop by?
I had, we didn't have any, I did not have any potential clients.
Okay.
A couple people, there was one gentleman who came by who does child custody evaluations. So he's not a psychologist, but he's sort of on the outside, but definitely was interested.
Yeah.
Couple people person came by who's doing Reiki, wanted to hear more about what we're doing. So some people a little bit outside the profession, but mostly within our profession.
So I'm kind of curious about your setup, your office layout, and if you could just kind of tell us how many people are in your practice right now, and would you have room to expand?
Yes, it's funny that you said that because I have 2 offices right now, and we have 2, 4, 6, 7 people using 2 offices. And mostly what we're finding is that during the afternoon and evening hours, of course, people were overlapping. So we were having a little bit of a conflict last week. And I thought, oh boy, I got to really think about what we're going to do about this. So I think I am going to be actually subletting from somebody else in the building for 2 more afternoons and evenings a week. So yeah, we are quickly, I think, going to be expanding.
Wow.
I know.
What a good way to segue into our first topic about learning to manage time. And I guess in your case that you have many therapists who you have to schedule. And also, what I like about what you're doing is what I hear other people not doing, is that you're trying to make the best use of space and to utilize that space as much as possible. So there's basically no downtime in terms of use of office space. What a great idea.
That's the ideal, right? But a lot of times it's also, it's harder to fill up. Like I work mostly during the morning and day hours, but it's hard to get clients that, when they're working that can come in.
Yep.
So that's the harder time to fill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what other, just looking at how you spend your time as a private practitioner, Debbie, we have a lot of the Journey followers. Many people aren't in private practice right now. And so they're interested and they are considering doing it, and they think to themselves, well, what do you do during the day? I mean, you see clients, obviously, but what else do you do during the day when you're not seeing clients? And how do you spend your time? I mean, if you could just kind of give us a glimpse into a typical day for you and tell us a little bit about how you spend your time.
Okay. Well, what I do during the week, I'm my major work hours. I start really early in the morning. My first client's at 7 a.m.
Oh, wow.
So I go 7 till about 12:30 straight through. And then my afternoon time is very much, that's sort of, it's my time. I mean, I do Pilates, I do ballroom dancing.
Oh.
And so all that, the afternoon time, and then I kind of take for myself, and that's a great time to make appointments. And then I also do some online teaching. So I do that in the afternoons as well. And then 2 nights a week, I go back over into the office. But I've limited that really to only 2 nights a week. That might be changing because we're going to be offering some groups. So my schedule might be changing a little bit, but I really find that having that afternoon time for myself is really important to just sort of rejuvenate.
Yeah, and that'll be something I want to ask you about a little bit later when we talk about self-care. But sounds like for you, it's just not the fact that you're doing the private practice. You're doing the online teaching as well. So you kind of have different activities that you're doing. Do you find that with the online teaching, how does that figure into how much time that takes and prepping for that and teaching it, and what's that like?
It's time consuming. I mean, it's not hard. I mean, education has been my life, and I've been in education for 20 some odd years. So the online teaching, the only reason that I'm really doing it is it's more of a safety net. I just want to have, a little bit of W-2 income coming in.
Yeah.
And it helps with, taxes that's already being paid. So, but it does take up time. I mean, on my weekends, I spend too much time on the computer doing that.
Yeah.
But I also, I'm also a teacher, and so this part, but I do enjoy the interaction with students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So sometimes for you, this particular professional activity, it's almost like I'm not sure if it would be correct to say you have to be more flexible when you teach an online class, or it just happens to be with you that your time, I guess your time is just distributed a little bit differently than if you were to go somewhere, you teach a class from 9 to 10 o'clock, 3 days a week, and blah 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 blah. And with online, you may have to distribute your time a little bit differently, huh?
Yeah, well, yes. And what I do with the online, I do a couple different things. When I'm actually teaching an online class, I need to check in. I check in every day. We're supposed to check in like 5 days a week, but I make sure that I check in every day. Just number one, so I don't get behind on work, and then it's just to make sure if anything important comes up. I check my email with the school every day because that's the way I always tell students to get in touch with me. And then there are other students that I work with, like I'm on dissertation committees and chairing several committees, and that I don't check in with students as much. It's maybe on a weekly basis.
Yep. Yeah. So it's nice to know for the Journey followers that in your particular case, you're just not limiting yourself to seeing clients, that you have an additional income stream. And it also just kind of, for you, you like teaching. I mean, you've been in in that field for many years. And so this is just something that you enjoy doing anyway. So it sounds like a real win-win for you. What a great thing to do. Yeah.
No, I think it's a great combination. And it's just, like I said, there's a safety net. And I think in having two different but similar occupations working together.
Yeah. Well, let me segue into our next topic here of learning to develop successful habits. And I've asked the other therapists about the Stephen Covey book. Well, not about the book, but about habits that they've developed as a business owner to help them develop a successful private practice. You've been in this for a little bit longer than the other therapists have. And I wonder what you've done over the course of your career, Debbie, to develop successful habits that have helped you build a solid private practice.
Habits meaning professional habits or personal habits or both? Or?
Well, in the Stephen Covey book, he wrote about the 7 habits of highly successful people. And I guess I'm talking, it could be personal or professional habits. Anything that you think that you've developed over the years that you kind of do on a repetitive basis that you think has really helped you be a successful business owner?
I think a lot of it is putting yourself out in your local community. That's a real important piece. And I'm finding actually that that's something that's much more important now than when I was just doing a solo practice.
Why is that?
Well, I think it's because it's a new business and a new name. And, I had a reputation under, my name. But now Primrose Healing and Wellness is a new entity to the community.
Right.
So it's doing a lot of networking and marketing around that. I think originally when I first got started, I reached out to a lot of the insurance companies, and that was something that I very actively did.
Right.
And now I'm going in the other direction, saying, no, we're not going to do that. So at the beginning, that was something that was necessary for success.
That's really interesting. It's almost like you're starting back at square one because you have this new business entity and everybody knew who you were, but by your name, and that was your practice. And now your name isn't associated with that. With the new group practice, that's interesting. So you're almost having to do things that you had to do before, only in a different way because you're not working with insurance companies.
Much more so. In fact, it was funny because I have had a couple clients come in this week saying that they got email statements from Primrose Healing and Wellness, and they almost deleted the email because they didn't know who it was.
That's interesting. So, and also, it's not only the fact that you've switched from solo to group practice, but your focus has also switched, hasn't it? Because you have more of that holistic aspect to your practice now.
Absolutely, yeah. And bringing in the whole, the Reiki, the yoga, the meditation, the stress reduction, all that stuff is now part. That would be things that we as therapists would refer people out for, and now it's all part of what we are doing.
Are you having to develop new habits just in terms of how you interact with the people that work for you? Doing anything along those lines, or have you already developed those kind of skills or habits that have allowed you to be a good manager or good supervisor?
Well, one of the things that I've always had interns working for me because I really like the teaching element, as we talked about before. So the one thing that is really working well for me right now in terms of bringing new people on and sort of being a mentor, and I think I can do that well. And they're not, we're very comfortable with each other, and they come to me with stuff, and I really like that part. So been a habit I've developed. The new habits that I'm learning to develop are all around, the whole financial piece and learning to track new ways to do this. And I still don't have that down. That's because I'm learning new things. So that will be an ongoing project.
That's a work in progress, isn't it? I mean, I think it's hard enough just to learn how to do that as a solo practitioner.
I know.
And now you're kind of having to ratchet up a notch, and I could see how that would be challenging. So, yeah. Well, let's take a look at caring for yourself, and I think that in your case, expanding your practice can be stressful, and I think that there could be this temptation to want to do too much, to take on too much, and not really look at yourself and take care of yourself in the process. I'm wondering, I've asked the other therapists this question about, what are some of the signs or signals that you're taking on too much or you're getting too stressed out, and what do you do to take care of yourself? So what is that for you, Debbie?
Well, for me, it's when I start getting tired, or I get the feeling that I don't want to do something. It's like there's this meeting that I just really don't want to go to, but I go anyway.
Yep.
Those are the worst things for me. And then right now I am doing a lot, but I also know that my energy is really high, and I think because I'm just excited about this.
Yes.
But my body feels it. It's like if I start noticing it in my back, or definitely. But the things that I have to, as a holistic practitioner, be modeling that.
Of course.
That self-care.
Yep.
So that's what I said. I do Pilates, and I do ballroom dance, and I do those a couple times a week. I go for my massages, regularly, and I'm a big believer in self-care. Retail therapy works, whatever it takes.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with that. Well, why do you think that self-care is so important anyway?
Because I just think as therapists, we are giving so much energy out to other people that if we don't take care of ourselves, there's no way that we have that energy to be able to be really effective with others.
Yeah. You have to care for yourself to be able to care for others, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's look at just personal relationships. I think that when you're going into this, either for the first time or expanding like you are, that there are a lot of people who come along for the ride, so to speak. So family members, spouses, partners, kids, friends. And I wonder, in your case, Debbie, what kind of roles other people have played as you have expanded your practice?
I've been very lucky that I have a lot of people that are supportive, in terms of what I'm doing, but people have really stepped up. My partner has stepped up, and basically he's done so much of the old school kind of marketing. That's kind of been his field. So he's out there, delivering flyers and meeting people and doing that. And then his daughter and son-in-law have got on board with doing a lot of my social media marketing website. And so it's all new school marketing. So the whole family component there has been invaluable. Wow. I don't know that this could be so successful if I didn't have all that marketing help.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's been really, really awesome.
And I wonder, if had you planned that ahead of time? I mean, when you were thinking about expanding to group practice, did you have conversations with your family members and say, "Hey, this is what I'm planning on doing, and I need your help," or did they just kind of step up and decide, "Hey, we're going to start helping you," or how did that all work?
Well, it was interesting because my partner and I, he basically said, "I will do anything I can to help you." And that was, going into it. I think he was a little surprised at how fast this all took off, but he was there from the beginning. And then the conversation that actually had, we were over in Italy back in September, and we met up with his daughter and son-in-law who were on their honeymoon, and we were just talking about this stuff. And they had said, well, we're doing this marketing web design business on our own. And it was just kind of like, oh, would you be interested? And he's like, oh yeah, maybe. And then but I sort of forgot about it and then got back and I sort of started pursuing other web designers. And I was having a real bad experience with one company that I was working with. And I said, you know what, maybe we should just go with these guys and see if they really want to do it. And they did. And it just really took off.
Wow.
And it's great. I think we've got a really good website and one marketing program.
Oh, that's great. Well, kind of looking at your relationship with your partner, and I don't want to get too personal, but what's been the challenge for you, pertaining to your personal relationships as you've expanded into group practice, or have you found that there hasn't been any challenges to that relationship?
There really have. I don't think that there really has been. I mean, it would always be nice if we spend a lot of time together. It'd be nice to, spend more time doing more fun things, but, instead of working a lot. But we definitely make the time, on weekends and stuff to do that. And I just think, I've been very lucky and he's just been incredibly supportive. And we work well together.
It sounds like you're a pretty lucky gal there, Debbie.
I'm happy.
Well, let's look at our last topic for today, which is looking at the private practice mindset and identity. And as I've said all along, you're unique in that you're the only therapist who has already had the private practice. So when you first went into private practice, you kind of had to develop that mindset of what it's like to be a private practitioner. But now it's different because now you've transitioned into group private practice. And I wonder if you've experienced this at all, where you've kind of had to change your mindset about who you are, how you see yourself, because like we were talking about earlier, you don't advertise yourself as Debby Simmons anymore. You have the Primrose holistic wellness, and I can't remember the exact name of the practice.
Healing and wellness.
There you go.
Healing
Thanks.
And wellness, yeah.
So now you portray yourself as this. I wonder if there's been any shifts in how you've kind of viewed yourself, or how that's all gone.
The identity, that's a really good word to use about this, because it definitely has shifted. And it seems like it's, I step back every now and then and I look at everything that's going on with this business. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a business owner now. That is, yes. I didn't necessarily feel like I was a business owner when I was in private practice. I was a clinician, but I wasn't a business owner. I didn't think myself that way. But now I do, because I feel like there are other people who I'm responsible for. And even within our community, as we get our name known, I feel like I'm representing an organization. It's not just me, right?
Yes.
And I'm talking up all these other people, in terms of what they do. I'm just not talking about myself. And so there's a big difference there. But I also think it's sometimes easier. It's hard to go out and to, talk yourself up and talk about how wonderful you are and how wonderful your practice is. But I can definitely talk up this practice and how wonderful it is.
Well, and I was wondering about that, because it almost seems like when you took your name off there, it's almost like you're losing something. And I wonder if you've kind of felt any. Grief is too strong of a word, but I wonder if you felt any disappointment in not being able to use your own name for your practice anymore, and now transitioning to this, or wasn't it that bad of a transition?
No, I don't think it was that bad of a transition at all. The only thing I was worried about was with some of the clients, because clients get very locked into, a particular, your name or
right.
The office that you're using and that kind of thing. So I've just had to be very cautious and slow in the transition with some clients. But in terms of not using my name, I feel it's much easier to me to be attached to a group name than an individual name.
Okay. And I guess, part of this transition too you were talking about the responsibility, and I think one of the other responsibilities is that you have that financial responsibility too. That you were talking about, having to learn that habit, learning how to do that, and I think that probably comes along with transitioning to group ownership as well. So that's real interesting.
Yeah, that's that will always be the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I imagine so. And what now, are you using any kind of system, any kind of software to help you with that, or are you just trying to rely on simple ways of doing that?
No, I'm trying to learn QuickBooks. That's what my accountant and everybody said that I need to learn, and I just haven't learned it yet.
It's a process, isn't it? I'm doing the same thing actually, and my wife and I sat down once. I guess it was for several hours once, and we actually, between that and me watching a whole bunch, you've probably done this too, watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos and how-tos and all this kind of stuff. And I think we finally got it figured out, because if any of the Journey followers, if any of you guys have ever tried to use QuickBooks, and Debbie, you probably know this too, that it's not clinician friendly. It's just not set up for clinicians. And it's so difficult to translate some of the language of QuickBooks to what we're used to in the mental health field. I found that to be extremely frustrating and difficult, but I think I finally got it to the point where I know the basics and I've got this down, and I think I can do it now. So for me, it's just finding the time of entering, all the information in there, because I'm a one-man show in my practice, and so it's just hard to find the time to do all that kind of stuff. But I feel your pain.
So, yeah. So I was even on, there's QuickBooks for the self-employed, then there's regular QuickBooks, and there's QuickBooks Payroll, and I'm just like, oh my God, I don't know.
Oh, I know. And I think I use the QuickBooks Online. I think that's the one that I decided to use on.
I think that's the one I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, and that's been the one that I've spent the most time on. So, we could probably do an entire podcast episode just on that, couldn't we?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Or how to convert this into mental health language.
Exactly.
That would be great.
Yeah. Somebody ought to do that.
I know, right?
Well, listen, Debbie, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, or if they want to check out your website, how can they do that?
It's primrosehealingandwellness.com.
Okay.
And then we have a Facebook page there too, to go ahead and like that, and it keeps you updated on everything that we're doing.
Great. And I also want to tell the Journey followers about the Private Practice Journeys Facebook community. So if you guys want to interact with Debbie or any of the other 3 therapists who participate on a monthly basis on this podcast series, please sign up for that. It's a great Facebook community, very supportive, and a lot of good questions are asked, and the therapists participate all the time. So I'd love to see you join that as well. So, Debbie, I guess we will link up again next month.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.
You too.
All right. All right. It was great to have Debbie come on the podcast again today. And, as I was listening to this, one of the things that I really liked about what she's doing is she not only has the group private practice, but she is also teaching in the afternoon. So she has found a way to supplement her income, so this new venture doesn't seem to be quite as risky for her. So is basically her safety net. And I think that that's a great idea. Normally when I talk to people about who want to go into private practice, my students in particular, I suggest that they look at getting a job in a community mental health center or a clinic. Do that for a couple of years and get to know the community, get to know the resources in the community, and allow them to get to know you as a therapist and the quality of your work. And as you work and do good work, of course, you're going to start to get those referrals from them. And at some point in time, you can start a part-time private practice and continue to get those referrals and start to do that kind of work while you're still in the job. And of course, this is a way of keeping the risk at a manageable level. A little stressful though, and I think that there's no getting around that can be stressful to do. But I think it's a safer way of entering private practice, and but also to have those other sources of income, like Debbie does by online teaching, and of course there are other things that you can do as well. So. But anyway, thanks to you, Journey followers, for listening to this podcast episode. And if you want to get the show notes for today's podcast episode, go to my website, chrisquarto.com, ChrisQuarto.com. And I have the information that Debbie was talking about as well, about her website and Facebook in there as well, and so go there and get that information if you would. And also, if you haven't done so yet, please consider joining the Private Practice Journeys Facebook community, where you can interact with the 4 therapists who appear on this podcast series throughout the year, throughout this year of 2017, and interact with other people, including myself. And I'd love to see you on there. Have a great rest of the week.